Steve here. We need to talk about something. Something that changed the world we live in. It's a story about greed, about mind-bending complexity, and about a collapse that brought the entire global economy right to the edge of the abyss. This is the story of 2008.
We're going to break this down into 4 parts. First, we'll look at the Great Rotation, how the seeds of this crisis were sown. Then, we'll dissect the weapon of mass destruction that was the CDO, and the big lie that sold it. After that, we relive the moment the system finally shattered, the fall of Lehman Brothers. And last, we'll grapple with the world that left us, the world we're all trading in today.
All right, let's go back to the early 2000s. The dot-com bubble has just imploded. Silicon Valley is a ghost town of failed startups, and all that investment money, well, it had to find a new home. It didn't go back into tech, no. It went into something solid. It went into dirt. It went into the American dream, the family home.
Now, to keep the economy from crashing after that tech wreck, the Federal Reserve, led by Alan Greenspan, did something extreme. They dropped interest rates down to just 1%. You have to understand, that's practically free money, and it was like pouring gasoline on a fire that was just waiting to be lit.
This tidal wave of cheap cash kicked off a housing frenzy built on, well, nothing. The banks started tripping over themselves to lend money to absolutely anyone. They even had a name for it, a ninja loan. It stands for no income, no job, or assets. Think about that. We were building a financial house of cards with this stuff, and for a while, it seemed to work. I mean, home prices only ever went up, right? Until, of course, they didn't.
But this wasn't just a Main Street problem. No, the real poison was being cooked up in the labs of Wall Street. This is where the story takes a turn.
See, the masterminds of this era were these brilliant mathematicians they called quants, and they created this monster, the collateralized debt obligation, the CDO. On the surface, the idea sounded plausible. You take thousands of individual mortgages, you bundle them all together, and then you sell little slices of that income stream to investors all over the world. It was supposed to spread the risk out, make it safer. But what it really did was hide the risk and concentrate it.
It was like some kind of dark magic. They'd take thousands of those garbage ninja loans, the absolute worst mortgages you could find, and mix them all together in a big pot. Then they'd slice this toxic stew into different pieces. They called them tranches. And here's the kicker. The ratings agencies, the supposed watchdogs, would come in and stamp the top slices with a AAA rating. That's the safest rating you can get, the same rating as U.S. government debt.
And that right there, that was the big lie. The central, rotten idea that the entire system was built on. Wall Street's fancy models said that if you just chopped up and mixed enough garbage together, the risk would somehow just disappear, that you could, quite literally, turn sludge into gold, and the whole world bought it.
But here is the most important part. The very banks that were manufacturing and pushing this stuff, Lehman Brothers, Bear Stearns, all the big names, they weren't just selling it, they were holding it. They were eating their own cooking. Their balance sheets were clogged with billions of dollars of this toxic sludge. By 2007, the smart money was getting out. They knew it was all a fraud. They just had to make sure someone else was left holding the bag when it all blew up.
And then it happened. The music stopped. The whole rickety structure began to groan, and the world just held its breath.
September 15th, 2008. Burn that date into your memory, because that was the day the world changed.
After saving other firms, the U.S. government made a decision. They let Lehman Brothers go under. It was the largest bankruptcy in the history of this country. For the very first time, one of Wall Street's untouchable giants was allowed to fail. And its death started a chain reaction that nobody could stop. What happened next wasn't just a stock market crash. It was worse. It was a global credit freeze. The very plumbing of the financial system just stopped. Banks had no idea who was holding Lehman's worthless debt, so out of pure terror, they stopped lending money to each other. Credit, the oxygen of our economy, it just vanished in a day. The man who had to face this financial apocalypse was the Fed chairman, Ben Bernanke. Now, Bernanke was one of the world's foremost scholars of the Great Depression. All of a sudden, he wasn't just studying history anymore. He was living it, and he had to prevent it from happening all over again.
And so Bernanke did something that had never been done before. He unleashed something called quantitative easing, which is just a fancy term for the Fed printing trillions of dollars from nothing and using it to buy up all that toxic debt from the banks. It was the bailout. It probably saved the system from total collapse, but it left millions of people feeling like the game was rigged. And they weren't wrong.
So,
The fire was put out, but the landscape was scarred forever. The crisis was over, but it left behind a legacy of debt that we are all still dealing with.
So why am I taking you through this grim history today, on Friday, March 13th, 2026? Because the market you are looking at right now, the world we operate in, was born in the fires of that crisis. Bernanke's rescue fundamentally changed the game. We now live in an era of constant central bank intervention, and all that debt that was created to fix the problem, it never went away.
If there's one lesson that was burned into every trader who lived through 2008, it's this: liquidity is everything. It really is like oxygen. You don't even notice it when it's all around you, but the second it disappears, it's the only thing you can think about, the only thing that matters.
So I'll leave you with the ultimate lesson of Lehman Brothers. As you manage your risk today, always remember this: when the entire system is leveraged to the hilt and everyone panics and runs for the same small exit door at the very same time, that door is locked. It's always locked. Watch your debt. I'll see you at the open.